Sometimes a single city council vote over a single piece of property can tell you so much. It sounds pretty routine, right? But this particular decision, it really pulls back the curtain on how powerful stories can be, whether they're true or not, and how they can literally change a city's future. This really is a classic case of information versus influence. And this, right here, gets to the very heart of how local government is supposed to work. I mean, we expect decisions to be based on facts, on data. But what happens when a really compelling personal story, a powerful piece of testimony, ends up carrying more weight than the actual official record? All right, so picture this. We're at a city council meeting. On the agenda, there's a developer's request to rezone a property at 1029 Florida Avenue. Seems straightforward. But yeah, what looked like a totally standard procedure, it went off the rails pretty fast once a couple of council members stood up and shared some pretty powerful objections. So let's break down the two key arguments that basically stopped this rezoning cold in its tracks. These statements came from Councilman Frank Forrester and Councilwoman Sammy Martin, and they were made just moments before the vote. And boy, did they turn out to be pivotal. So first up, you have Councilman Frank Forrester. He kind of argues from a place of history, right? He claims the developer is coming back and asking for even more units than a plan they'd already denied. Now, that idea that the developer was getting greedy or overreaching, it really set a negative tone right from the start. And then next up, Councilwoman Sammy Martin. Wow. She paints this really vivid, almost alarming picture. To warn everyone about the supposed dangers of mixed-use zoning, she describes a neighborhood where a crematory and a tool shop are supposedly running right next to people's homes. It was a super powerful and deeply personal cautionary tale. And you gotta understand, these weren't just random off-the-cuff comments. These stories had an immediate, decisive impact. The whole debate was about to come to a surprisingly sudden end. And just look how fast this all went down. I mean, the second Councilwoman Martin finished telling her story, she made a motion to deny the whole thing. It gets a second immediately, and then it passes. Just like that. No more debate, no one stopping to check the facts. The testimony led straight to the vote. Case closed. Or was it? And that really could have been it. End of story. But this one, massive question was just hanging in the air. Was that powerful testimony that swayed the entire vote? Was it actually true? And this is where the story takes a really interesting turn. So after that meeting, an official inquiry was sent over to the city's Community Development Department. The goal was super simple. Let's just fact-check the claims Councilwoman Martin made about that neighborhood near Cogswell Street. And, well, the city got back to them. What we're about to see is the official record, the word from Community Development Director John Cooper. These are the hard facts, straight from the city's own data. And here it is. This is the real deal, the actual email from Director Cooper. We're looking at the primary source document that lays out the city's official data. So now, finally, we can compare what was said in the meeting to what the facts actually are. Okay, first up, the crematory. The claim was that it was operating in that residential neighborhood. But the fact? The actual on-the-books fact from the city? The crematorium is located in an M1 general industrial district. It was never in a residential zone to begin with. All right, so what about the tool shop inside a residential building? The claim painted this picture of a mixed-use property. The reality, according to Director Cooper, it's just a single-family home. And, this is the key part, it has no active business licenses. That tool shop, it didn't exist as a legal business. And get this, the official response even came with this map. I mean, you can see it right here for yourself. There is a clear, distinct line between the industrial zone, where the crematory is, and the completely separate residential areas. The visual evidence just flat out contradicts the story told in the meeting. Okay, so let's just take a step back and look at what we've got here. On one side, you have this really influential, compelling testimony. And on the other, you have official city records that pretty clearly show that testimony was factually incorrect. So what's the impact of a disconnect like that? Here's the bottom line, the big takeaway. A major decision about the future development of a property got completely derailed by stories that just weren't based in fact. As you can see here, the scales were tipped, not by evidence, but by anecdotes. In this round, influence definitely won out over information.
And look, this one vote on this one piece of land, it really makes you think. And it pushes a much bigger question out there for all of our communities. Inside the halls of power, how do we make sure that the big decisions shaping our future are built on a solid foundation of fact and not just on compelling fiction?